What's going on, guys? Today, Jagex just released a news post about some of the changes they're making to the combat beta, and usually I'm not going to make videos, or I haven't really made videos on the combat beta changes, but this one really interested me because of the Leng spec rework and the Lengs in general just getting a huge rework. So, yeah, I'm going to pull up the post here. I'm going to put the link to this in the description if you want to read into more detail about it. But let's go right into the core changes. So obviously we know that the damage ranges are being kind of brought more in line, the hit caps being increased to 30k, and the critical strikes are being changed to be necromancy style criticals to, I guess, make more sense. We all kind of know that that is happening. Actually, there's one more thing I wanted to note here. You can see here they're abbreviating like the Control, Alt, and Shift modifiers on your action bar to just be like an A, so it shouldn't take up as much space. But yeah, that's really the only changes for like the core changes. But what I really wanted to go into was the changes to the combat styles themselves. So again, you can read more of this stuff in more detail on the post itself. I'm not really going to be going over too much, but as you can see, they're increasing basically every single ability by a little bit of damage, about 10% on average, but there are a couple outliers that I've noticed. So the first one for melee is going to be Flurry and Greater Flurry are going to be getting some decent damage increases. As you can see, Greater Flurry 376 to 440, and then Destroy is going from 450 to 520. These are pretty big changes to those two abilities, but you know, the rest of them are just like 10%. But the big thing that I want to talk about here is first going to be the AGS spec is getting increased to 400% ability damage. So if you need like one big hit instead of a bunch of small hits, I guess this could be useful, although claws are still going to be way better than this. So yeah, I don't know. Claws still seem like the goated melee spec, and we'll get into why that is. But yeah, the rest of this stuff doesn't really seem like that big of changes, to be honest with you. Greater Fury is going to be getting a big change here. Instead of it being a chance to apply a critical strike to your next ability, it's going to be 100%. This is going to be really, really nice. Again, there's small changes to some of these abilities. Berserk, I can't talk today, but Berserk is going to be going to a multiplicative instead of additive modifier. And apparently this is going to be a buff, so Berserk is getting a little bit better. They're also going to be making Flurry do full damage to all targets instead of being kind of like weird how it is now. It did reduce damage in AoE scenarios if you didn't know. So, I don't know, it's just kind of a weird ability like it was. But the main thing I want to talk about here is going to be the changes they're making to the Lengs. So I'm not going to go over the tier 85 set. The tier 95 set is the same thing, just with higher percentages. But this is what the Lengs are going to be doing now. So they're getting a complete rework, and basically what's going to be happening here with the Lengs is they're going to have a 17% chance to apply an ice stack with each hit, which is why I think claws will be better here, because you'll get more stacks. And basically what happens once you get a ice stack is going to be you gain 5% adrenaline. And this is going to be massive for the Lengs. And because you're just going to be gaining a ton of passive adrenaline all the time. And I personally believe they might be doing this because I think they might want to nerf the crit buff from abilities like Meteor Strike and Tsunami and stuff. Or maybe not Tsunami, but for sure like Meteor Strike and Incendiary Shot. Because, you know, if you see what they did with like Rapid Fire and the Dracolic armor, that's going to be giving you a bunch of adrenaline, and now these Lengs are going to be giving you a bunch of adrenaline, so hopefully they're going to be doing something about the crit buff, because I think anybody who's used the crit buff knows that it's like absolutely broken. I don't know, the crit buff just seems really insane for every style except for magic. So yeah, and the only reason I don't say it's insane for magic is because magic kind of needs it in order to function, and magic is also like garbage right now, so it doesn't really matter. They're also going to be adding a passive to the offhand for an additional 5% ice stack chance, which again should bring it up to 23%. And then they're also going to be making it so whenever you apply the ice stack, you gain Frost Blades, which gives you an additional 12% damage. So as you can see, the passives of the main hand and offhand Lengs are going to be absolutely insane. Basically, to summarize it, it's going to be a 23% chance to gain an ice stack that will gain you 5% adrenaline every time you gain the ice stack. And then whenever you do gain the ice stack, you're going to be getting a 9-second buff for 12% increased damage. This is going to be absolutely ridiculous. Super, super strong. But not only are they changing the passives, they're also going to be changing the special attack here. And basically what the special attack is going to do, to summarize this, it's going to cost 30% adrenaline. It's going to hit your primary target for 100% ability damage, but it's also going to cast an AoE that does 155% damage to the additional targets. And then it's also going to consume all of your ice stacks and do 20% damage per stack. So if you have like, 10 stacks, you're going to get a free 200% damage hit. And this is going to be insane, I think. Like, it seems like the Lengs are going to be an incredibly strong weapon, especially with the 30% critical strike, or 30,000 damage cap, yeah, I think melee is going to be pretty strong with Lengs once this goes live, if it stays the same, because this is really, really powerful. Moving on to ranged, same thing with range. They're just increasing all of the abilities by about 10% damage. The only outlier here is going to be rapid fire. You can see rapid fire is gaining a 110% damage, so pretty big increase for rapid fire, but the rest of these doesn't really matter too much. The only thing that might be worth noting is G-Rico. G-Rico is getting a pretty slight buff to every single hit, which is nice. I don't know, they nerfed G-Rico pretty hard when they nerfed it right before the FSOA came out, so I guess it's good that it's getting a buff. As for the range special attack changes, the only thing that I think is really worth noting here is going to be the hand cannon. The hand cannon is going from a 50% adrenaline cost to 35%, and its damage is getting increased to 330%. For reference, a dark bow, I believe, is like 365% average damage, or maybe it's 385%, but it costs 65% adrenaline to use. So, yeah, this, like, the hand cannon might actually be a pretty solid EOF spec. So, stock up on cannons. But yeah, everything else in here, I don't really know how good any of these other changes are going to be. The Guthix bow might be useful if you like passive healing, but it's probably not worth it. And the decimation, this might be good. Low K is being reduced to a 35% adrenaline cost, but again, that's only good for like AoEing. So I don't really know how useful that's actually going to be. But yeah, the other big change they're going to be making is going to be nerfing the Bow of the Last Guardian a little bit. You can read this stuff. Basically, this is the nerf here. They're reducing the damage a little bit from the stored damage, and then they're increasing the base damage by a little bit. But the main change that I saw here is going to be this line here. So basically, what happens here is if you get a perfect equilibrium and it critical hits, you'll gain an additional stack, and you no longer will be able to do that. So basically, this is going to be a little bit of a nerf to the Bow of the Last Guardian, which probably a good thing. That bow is absolutely ridiculous. But I don't know. I don't really like nerfs too much. They're kind of boring. They're also changing like Dazing Shot. This right here for Shadow Tendrils, I think, is a pretty solid change. They're making it so instead of doing 2 to 5 hits to yourself, you're always going to be doing 5. This should bring the damage to be way more consistent. I don't know. It was pretty annoying before when you'd hit yourself twice and hit like a garbage tendril. So now it's always going to be pretty consistent. But the biggest change to range, I think, is going to be Ruby Bolts here. So Ruby Bolts, they're being changed to, whenever they proc, simply add 50% ability damage to your next ability, or I guess the current ability that it procced on. So right here you can see if it was a 30 to 40% damage ability, it goes up to an 80 to 90% damage ability. So this is going to be a massive, massive nerf to Ruby Bolts, and basically, I mean, make dual wield range useless, right? I guess not dual wield, but crossbow range just useless now until we get a good crossbow, probably a tier 95 crossbow to come out. They'll also no longer have a cooldown. They only do 5% of damage back to you, and they also have a fixed 5% proc chance instead of the variable chance they had before. So I think that these are good changes to Ruby bolts, but it is a pretty significant nerf. But I guess the Ruby bolts are really broken before because the hit cap was 30,000 instead of 10,000. So like you just sit there and spam 30Ks. So yeah, they probably did need to be nerfed, but it seems like they're gonna be not super amazing here. But I don't know, we don't have a crossbow to use them with, so it's kind of hard to say. And then for magic, nothing really changed with magic. Like I said, they just increased the damage values a little bit by about 10%. But yeah, there's really no noteworthy changes for magic. And besides metamorphosis is going up to 66% from 62, so I guess it's getting a little better. But yeah, there's really no other changes you can see to magic. And I believe that they didn't really change magic too much because an FSOA passive or rebalance or something is probably coming in the future, which is a good thing because the FSOA got ruined. It's like a useless trash weapon now, which sucks. But yeah, I think they're going to be adding some further stuff to magic in the future at some point. And then finally, to conclude this video, there's one more thing that I want to talk about, and that's going to be the Equilibrium perk. So Equilibrium perk is now being renamed Eruptive, and instead of doing what it currently does, it is going to be a simple 0.5% per rank ability damage increase, as you can see right here. So this should make Equilibrium a lot better than it currently is. You know, it'll have up to a 2% damage increase at Equilibrium 4, which should be pretty decent. I don't know if this is going to change the meta perk composition, but it might, because 2% damage is a pretty big number, to be honest. Like everyone knows, like 1% damage is like a pretty solid increase, and people pay like an AOD codex for 1% or 2% damage. So yeah, this is going to be making Equilibrium perk pretty useful, I would think. And yeah, this is going to be, I think, a really good change to that perk. But that's everything that is in the combat beta changes today. What do you guys think about these changes? Do you guys think the Lengs are going to be insane? Because I do. The Lengs seem really good now. Hopefully we see a change like this to the FSOA in the future to make it, you know, useful instead of trash. And yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comments below about these changes. And thanks for watching, guys. I will see you in the next one.